In the world of Star Wars, I am a big fan of the Empire, and I just noticed that my Star Wars Legion Empire army has kind of grown into a sprawling collection. It's kind of done. When Star Wars Legion came out, I knew I was going to do Star Wars Legion. I love tabletop wargaming. I love Star Wars, but I had a plan in mind because I knew, okay, I like the Rebel Alliance, but I don't love the Rebel Alliance, so I'll get them done first. I'll get them out of the way so that I have a Rebel army, but what I'm really excited for is like the battle droids, the clones, and the Empire. The Empire is probably, man, it's hard to say if the Empire is top tier or the droids are top tier. They're both really, really cool. I mean, I do collect the Empire in more than just Star Wars Legion. I have every single Imperial Lego minifigure ever made. I think not counting some of the brand spanking new stuff, because I don't currently buy Lego, but like everything from like 2005 to 2015, I have every single Lego Imperial ever made. And now I've kind of got all of the Star Wars Legion Empire. It's like movies like Rogue One, Han Solo, a solo Star Wars solo story, which were really, really good. It got me really pumped. No spoilers, but I haven't seen Andor yet, but it looks great. And now I've got a Star Wars Legion Empire army. Got the Rebels done. I've got the Empire done. Man, the Empire is really, really cool. It's all different shades of Stormtrooper, but I like Stormtroopers a lot. Star Wars Legion paints up so incredibly nicely, especially Stormtroopers because they're mostly white. But they like each figure paints up in a few minutes, and you kind of don't need that many figures because things come in squads of like 3 to 7. And just not having to get everything to 10 guys makes it paint so much quicker. The Dark Troopers. The Dark Trooper, which is kind of a combination of Dark Trooper Phase 2 and Phase 3. If anybody is familiar with the saga of the Dark Trooper, they started out in the expanded universe, and then they sort of got canonized in the comics, and then they got uncanonized, and then they came back to canonization in the Mandalorian show. But these guys painted up really, really fast, if you can believe it. I mean, black paint and a dry brushing of gray, and then, oh, I didn't paint the back of this guy's missile launcher. Maybe there's a little bit of TLC, but this army is mostly done. Oh, and the Death Troopers, Krennic and the Death Troopers. These guys were really fun to paint. Black armor can be a little bit tricky, but I kind of shifted it into cold tones of gray. And these guys, they weren't bad at all. And they're so spooky and weird in the movie. I don't think there's still a ton of lore on these guys. I know that they like talk in between themselves on like an encrypted channel, and that's why they have like a spooky, weird alien voice in the movie. And they're supposed to be like super troopers that just defend Captain Krennic, or not Captain Krennic. What is his... He's not a Moff. Krennic was just kind of the guy. Like he was kind of whatever Tarkin was, but then Tarkin like leapfrogged him in the Imperial hierarchy. It is really fun that like, if you're high enough rank in the Imperial organization, you can just go to Mustafar and have a 1-to-1 with Darth Vader. Seems like a bad move, but you can do it. I think one of the things that makes Star Wars Legion so good is that all of these designs are from the movies. And like, they're professionally done, perfect designs. And so like the Royal Guard are one of the most iconic things ever made. It's just so perfect. These big glossy helmets that kind of go pretty far onto the shoulder, and then just a red cape. And that's all they are, but they're perfect. They're so well designed. I think taking the things that exist in real life and in the movies and then turning them into miniatures kind of gives them a different vibe. They're a little bit more historical than some wargaming miniatures, because sometimes I think wargaming miniatures, they're wargaming miniatures first and only, and so that leads to weirdness, like slightly wonky proportions or way too much gear and clutter on them, or like just having too many textures. Some guys will have like fur and scale and armor, and wood is actually a pretty rare thing in miniatures. But with the Star Wars world, everything was perfectly designed first and then it turned into miniatures. I mean, the Stormtrooper armor is probably one of the most famous things on Earth. Probably like even more so than Darth Vader's helmet. The look of a Stormtrooper is so instantly recognizable as Star Wars. It's so perfectly designed. That face is a skull, but it's not like a silly, scary skull. It's just kind of like, it's a little bit bad. They're the bad guys, and they're very clearly the bad guys from their design. And I have a lot of bad guys. I have, I think, 7 squads of stormtroopers in total. For some of these stormtroopers, I've given them the Mustafar treatment. They are the 501st, technically, the Darth Vader's personal legion. And so I kind of gave them, I guess it's not technically Darth Vader's scheme, it's more the Emperor's scheme, because it's the Coruscant Guard that were led by Commander Fox. Those clones had the red armor on, or the red patterning on their armor, and so I gave that red patterning to all of the heavy weapon operators in my Star Wars army, including some of the alternate armor marks, like I did it to one of these snowtroopers as well. And I just think it looks really, really cool. I was a little tempted to do it to everybody, but I feel like what I envision for this force is this is just a regular Imperial occupying force, probably on like the planet Krayt, where they're like mining the gas or the spice or whatever it is that they mine there. I think it is spice, but it's very nebulous what spice is, and it's not the Dune spice. Don't get any ideas. I have them all set in kind of a brown, rocky environment. Some of the rocks are gray, some of the rocks are tan. I used a lot of grass tufts, but keeping it all just in one similar palette across the whole army makes them feel really, really done. And I think just having that dark and saturated brown color on the base with their white everywhere else is really, really striking. And the model that started it all, that started me down the Star Wars Legion rabbit hole, is this Dewback rider. Look at the Dewback. It's just a big lizard. It's like, what are those lizards that live in the deserts? The Gila monster? I mean, it's not like black and orange, but it's kind of got the Gila monster vibes. He's kind of cute, but kind of a giant lizard cow. There's a couple of artists online who are kind of sculpting in the Star Wars Legion style, and they've done a couple of Dewbacks because, you know, this guy is great, but you're only ever going to get this pose. And so a couple different poses out of the Dewback would be really nice. This guy is kind of interesting. He's actually a close combat unit, really. This guy up here, he can take this gun or the flamethrower. I actually have his arm magnetized. That was pretty tricky to do. And I've never taken there's actually 3 different options. There's the cattle prod, the flamethrower, or this gun. I haven't been doing a ton of magnetization because Star Wars Legion is not super important for WYSIWYG purposes, because you'll always know what your units have based on how the game works, because you purchase your units and then you purchase essentially cards for that unit. And so, you know, I might start out with a squad of stormtroopers and then I'll purchase extra trooper and I'll put that card next to the unit. And then I'll purchase the different weapons and then put that next to the unit, and the missile launcher and put that next to the unit. And each one of those cards equals a new guy added to the squad. And so there's never any confusion of, is the plasma gun in that squad or that squad? Because then you can just look at your sideboard. Star Wars Legion is a pretty tight little war game. One thing that is really different from 40k is it's not as literal as Warhammer 40k is. In 40k, if guy has a plasma gun, that is a completely different gun, and it adds a completely different attack to to your hit roll. Where in Star Wars Legion, you build yourself pools. They have different colored dice that have different values on them. And so when you say that, you know, Commander Krennic and the Death Troopers are going to shoot at that squad, you'll look at your cards and it'll tell you to add like 3 black dice, 3 red dice, and then 4 white dice. And then because of Krennic, you put another red dice in there, and then you shake them up, and then you roll them, and then that determines your hits and your hit probability. And it's kind of interesting. I haven't played enough Star Wars Legion to know the math. Everything is on a D8, except for saving throws are on a D6, but it's not a normal D6. It's kind of interesting that it's kind of got a different math to it. But I do think what's kind of interesting about that is you don't get into these weird scenarios of there's not room to edit. Like in 40k, there's nothing that really exists between toughness 3 and toughness 4. But a lot of things should be in between a toughness 3 and a toughness 4. A guardsman is toughness 3, orc boy is toughness 4. But like Sisters of Battle should probably exist in that middle ground. Adeptus Mechanicus should probably fit in that middle ground. But for Star Wars Legion, you just add or subtract dice from the pool. And so that's how you can kind of scale the power level of the game more. One thing I really like about the Empire is that they have some like non-standard things like the bounty hunters. I have Boba Fett and I have Bosk, and they don't make it for the game, but I would like to have the other different bounty hunters that were seen on I think they were on the Super Star Destroyer when Darth Vader was walking across them and telling them to go after Han Solo and to bring him back alive, no disintegrations. But it would be cool to have Forlom and Zuckuss and IG-88 and Dengar and a couple of other bounty hunters. Like in the comics, there's a lot of really cool bounty hunters that ended up working with the Empire. And speaking of comics, if anyone is a Star Wars fan out there, the greatest Star Wars comic book series of all time was a Dark Horse series called Star Wars Visions. It was a non-canonical grouping of stories from different artists and different illustrators, and they were really, really good. Some of my favorite Star Wars stories that I've ever read was in that particular series. There's some stuff that's just like completely funny and silly, and some stuff that you almost wish was canon because it's so good and so impactful. There's some really, really good stuff. There's some pretty good modern Star Wars comics, but man, I miss that series. Nobody likes Anthology, which is too bad because I love Anthology. I think the last run of that series, they actually did a canon version to try to drum up some interest, but I think because it was non-canon, nobody cared. It only lasted like 4 seasons. The only thing really left for my Imperial army, other than a couple of proxies that I would like to add to the collection, just because there's even more stuff in Star Wars that I really, really like, and that doesn't exist currently in the game, so I would have to proxy it, is a couple of vehicles. I have this Gab Oppressor tank, which was seen in the Han Solo movie, and I really like it as just a mobile platform to roll around the battlefield. But I also have an AT-ST that I've sort of earmarked for my rebels because I have a whole bunch of Ewoks and Wookiees that I'm working on. And you are allowed to ally a stolen AT-ST into a rebel army. And so I was thinking of maybe doing that for my rebel army, not for my Empire army. But once I get a couple of these vehicles done, then I'll have the rebels completely finished and the Empire completely finished. And then it's moving on to the prequel era. And the prequel era means battle droids. I love the battle droids, and there's a bunch of there's the snail tank, there's the B1 battle droids, the B2 super battle droids, you gotta watch those wrist rockets. They just came out with the aqua droids for Star Wars Legion. Like the battle droids are really, really cool, and it gives me a great opportunity to try out some oils and some different washes and some different painting techniques. I also just gotta play Star Wars Legion. There's a bunch of guys at my local store that play Star Wars Legion, and so I gotta get some games in. I played a bunch like years ago, and then I never touched it again. Although I do remember my Luke Skywalker killed one of Sean's AT-STs, just cut it right down the middle, and that was the first time his AT-ST had ever died. I think he played it against another friend of mine many times, and he cheered when I was able to cut down an AT-ST. Oh, one thing that this army is missing is lightsabers. I don't have Darth Vader. I don't have the Emperor. I don't have any of the new Jedi Hunters. Jedi Hunters, not my favorite thing, but I think it's just because they're so lame in Star Wars Rebels, because Star Wars Rebels is kind of lame. I'm not the age demographic for Star Wars Rebels. But you know what I am in the age demographic for? EonsOfBattle.com. EonsOfBattle.com is the place to find our merch like the Nick and Jay dice. We have basing toppers, and it is the best way to support us doing what we do with a membership. Each month, members get a credit that they can use on our new monthly terrain packs or any previous pack we have ever made. This May, we're delving back into the Hungry Maw with the Infested Colony, a world recently ravaged by the chitinous teeth and claws of the Endless Swarm, a series of ruined buildings crumbling under the weight of hypercharged plant growth and impaled by alien limbs, and shipping containers that have been ripped to shreds or torn open from the inside out. These relics of an alien war are designed with competitive wargaming in mind and an eye for storytelling, matching perfectly with our previous alien hive colony. With this set, you can build a wargaming table dripping with alien atmosphere. Now that my Imperial army is done, I can get to work on my battle droids, which is good because I've been slowly buying up some battle droids. Sometimes you can get Star Wars Legion pretty cheap on Amazon, and so I've just kind of been keeping my eyes open, and every now and then when it gets like 25% off, I'll just add it to cart and get it. So I got some work ahead of me, but I'm excited. Thanks for watching.